Welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with us this evening is a return guest, a familiar face in the building. She part of our season one lineup. Her episode from Pessimistic to Optimistic was a fan favorite, and she shared some powerful testimonies throughout that episode. So I'm super excited to have her back again, and she comes back to share with us a little bit about what her experience was like when she was on the first time around. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's an author, speaker, entrepreneur, and she's just out here making her mark on the world, just doing her thing. And we're so glad to have her in the building again with us. And so, as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, we want to inspire you, we want to encourage you, we want to uplift you, and that's exactly what we intend to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me reintroduce to you to some and introduce to you for the first time, Miss Nashauna Lenoir. Nashauna, thank you so much for being on the show with us again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we jump into our segments for this evening, I do want to, of course, for those who may be meeting you for the very first time, I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give them a little taste of who is Nashauna.
So my name is Nashauna, originally Johnson Lenoir. Now I'm known as Nashauna Richardson. Recently married, and I'm originally from Inglewood, which is the south side of Chicago, and I have been a resident of Olmsted County, Minnesota, Rochester, Minnesota, for probably about 11 years. And now I reside in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, where I have expanded the work that I do. I am the founding director of the Journey program, and we serve at-risk youth ages 13 through 18, connect their families with community resources, and we advocate on their behalf when it comes to school stuff, community resource opportunities, discrimination situations, youth in foster care. I also serve on a few committees here. One in particular, a bill that is focused on rewriting some laws and bylaws and processes and procedures with the state of Minnesota child foster care system. Um, I sit on the high school graduation network with Cradle to Career, and I also serve as a contractor for the state of Minnesota as a QI. That stands for a qualified individual. Where we do referrals for youth that are going into treatment facilities. And lastly, I am a part of Nexus's new leadership fellows, where we're working on the importance of building shared cooperatives within the Black community. So you can learn more about me and kind of what I'm doing, which is a plethora of different things. But a lot of people know me for Journey. This is our logo here on my shirt. Um, but yeah, that's me. That's my title.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. And as I, to my listening audience, as I told you, she is a woman wearing many hats, putting her stamp out there, pouring into young people in particular. So just some awesome works. And she shared quite a bit of that story, as well as just where her humble beginnings come from in the original episode from Pessimistic to Optimistic. So again, if you have not had an opportunity to check that out, be sure you make your way to my YouTube channel and tune into that episode. And I promise you will definitely be blessed and inspired from what she has to share. So again, we're here today to kind of give the audience a little bit of backstory, if you will, about what your experience was like being on the show the first go around. Just to kind of share a little bit before I start jumping into some questions for you. I want to let everybody know kind of how this all came about. You reached out to me through social media, through Facebook Messenger, in fact, and you offered the opportunity to, be a guest on my show. You and I had not previously met at that time, and I think what stood out to me about your particular episode and just our encounter in general that was different than any other that I've had so far is that, first off, you actually not only asked about being a guest on the show, but you actually offered to pay to be a guest on the show. And I had never experienced that before. And while I, was grateful and appreciative of the fact that you offered that, of course, anybody that's been a guest or will someday be a guest on my show, I don't charge you to be on the show. So, of course, I let you know that. But I appreciated the fact that you were even willing to, pay for the time to even be on the show. And then, of course, we had a little challenge in terms of trying to get everything scheduled. No, to nobody's fault, but it's just lifing. And so we had our first instance. We had I think you had a little medical situation came about. We had to reschedule, and then the next go around, you had a little family situation came about, and we had to reschedule. And then the third time, you were literally moments away from signing on, and your fire alarm went off in your building. And so, things like that happen, and it's real easy for you to get, kind of frustrated and maybe start to doubt, maybe this wasn't meant to be. But I get excited when stuff like that happens, and that may sound crazy, but I say that because it's, to me, it's sort of my way of understanding that the enemy doesn't want this conversation to happen, which means it's about to be a powerful conversation.
Yeah.
And so we persevered, we hung in there, we finally got on board to that moment of the interview, and it was everything and then some that I expected it to be. So, thankful to God that he allowed that to work out, to make those connections happen despite all of the challenges that we ran into. We made it happen. We did our thing. And so I'm just glad that it worked out that way, and we didn't give up in the process. So with that said, just to kind of give people a feel about just what this whole process is like, because a lot of people who come on my show, it's their first time doing it. They've never been on a podcast before, or maybe just in general, just never really shared their story before. So my first question that I have for you is, once you knew that this was going to be an official thing, that you and I were going to link up to be on the show together to talk about your story and everything, I'm curious to know from you, what was your initial reaction about it all? What were your feelings about it all? And what ultimately made you decide that this was the platform that was suited for you to be on? Because your story and in your background is such to where you could have had your picks of places to go. And so I feel very privileged and honored that you chose my platform, but I am curious to know, and would like for you to share with the audience that initial reaction and why Blessings in the Streets platform was that the platform for you to be on to share your story.
Well, I'll start off with the second question first,
Hmm.
because the reason I chose Blessings in the Streets podcast is because when I first thought about sharing my story, because my story, I was so like in an internal space where I just didn't want to be in the world. I didn't want to talk to people. Although I was going through things internally, um, I wanted everybody to respond to what I was going through in a soft way without telling them what I was going through. But nobody knew what I was going through because I didn't tell them. And so people would respond in a harsh way to me being internalizing myself from relationships, from my work duties, work projects, rather, and personal and business relationships. I just got away from everything and nobody knew why. People had an idea. And so when I decided that I was ready to come out of that space, I didn't want to share that with anybody that I knew personally, because I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to be questioned. I didn't want to be looked at a certain way. I just wanted a space to say what I had to say, and for people to be able to listen and be able to hear me out, and I could be my true authentic self. So when I first started looking for a podcast, um, I went in, I joined this podcast group. I think it was for like creatives, like podcast creatives, because I thought about starting a podcast a long time ago, but just with scheduling conflicts and things like that. Um, I never started a podcast, but because I was in that podcast group, I had been in that podcast group for maybe about 3 or 4 months, and I never made a comment or interacted with anybody. But when I was in this space where I'm like, I'm ready to tell my story, I want to tell it on one of these podcast shows that I'm in this group with. And I posed a question for the first time in that group, and I said, how do I go about looking for a space to, be a guest? And people were telling me, you can pay or you could just find somebody. And I just made a general post. I'm looking for somebody I can pay to be on a podcast. And so many people like responded to that, and it was your response that stood out to me first, because people who responded like, yeah, you can be on my show, I'd go to their page. I'd go, take a look at some of their work, things like that before responding. And when I checked out yours, Blessings in the Streets podcast, the name of the podcast really stood out to me because of my personal relationship with God. And everything that I was going through internally, it was nobody involved in that situation but me and God. And so now that I'm ready to come out, I wanted to be in a space where I feel like it's still just me and God while I'm sharing my story. So that Blessings in the Streets podcast. And then when I went to the page, it was nothing but uplifting, encouraging, spiritual messages from you. And I just immediately felt like this is a space where I feel like I can be vulnerable. I can be my true authentic self, and I feel like I'm also under the covering of God, you know. So it was the godly presence of Blessings in the Streets podcast that made me feel like I was in the world, but not of the world.
Hmm.
Sense. I wanted to put it out there in the world, but I didn't want it to be of the world because you got these podcast shows that are of the world, and no disrespect to what y'all got going on, to each his own, but for me, if I'm gonna tell my business in the streets, I want it to be in an environment that's respectful, it's humble, and it's God fearing. It's encouraging because that's what the message for was for. It was to encourage other people, and I wanted to share that story on a platform that was encouraging to others, and that's what I saw in Blessings in the Streets podcast, and that's why I reached out.
Love that. Love that. And again, I can't thank you enough for the honor of choosing me. And I'm glad that you felt that safeness, that presence, without us, again, having a previous connection with one another. And I totally relate to what you're saying, hey, I wanted to go somewhere where nobody knows me. But at the same time, it was a relaxed enough environment where I felt protected, where I felt safe. And that's so critical again. And I'm going back to your original episode for people who haven't checked it out yet. What Nashauna shares in that episode was the very thing that she shares, at least one aspect, I should say, because she shared a lot, but one aspect of the episode that she did share spoke to what it felt like being in a space where you were basically, if you want to say manipulated, if you were misrepresented, if you were put out there in a way where you didn't feel safe, you didn't feel protected. So I totally get why you would want to, if I'm going to tell it all, if I'm going to put it all out there, I need to be in a space that's the opposite of what I went through so that I can comfortably and authentically share. And so, so it's interesting that you were thinking about those kind of things as you were searching for a podcast. And even to that, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that my podcast is the greatest of all time and that there are no other good podcasts out there. There most certainly are. But I will say from a learning and lesson standpoint, anybody that is choosing to be on a podcast, you should be selective in podcasts that you're choosing. And even for those of you who are podcast hosts, be selective in the guest that you have on, because just like you did your homework, I'm the type of person that I've never been, even in the short time that I've been doing a podcast, I don't just randomly, go out, thirsting for guests, if you will. Or the first person that says, I want to be a guest, I want to be a guest. I don't just automatically say, okay, you want to be a guest? Well, jump on. I'm trying to make sure, is it a good match? Is it a good fit? And I felt like when you reached out and I did my little research about you, the little bit that I did know, and I was like, I think this will be a good fit. And it just felt right. I guess the best way I could say it, as we can call it, that divine intervention that just said, this is a good connection. This needs to happen. You two of you don't know each other, but you're going to get to know each other. And this is going to be not just a one show event, that this is going to be something that you'll be connected for time moving forward. And that's exactly what we have been. We still connect with each other. We still check in on each other from time to time and follow each other's lives, etc. So it was more than just you being a guest on the show. I felt like I acquired a new friend, a new connection, that I can, experience their life, and she can, and in turn you can experience mine, etc. So I'm thankful for that, and for God giving us that opportunity to make that happen. So
Don't forget, we both from Chicago.
that too. Hey, we both from Chicago, so that also added an extra little taste to it. I'm very familiar with Inglewood. Got plenty of friends who grew up in Inglewood, so Absolutely, absolutely. So when you were on the show, of course, you're now on the show. We're rolling along in the episode, and anybody who's been on my show knows that there's a point in the conversation where I ask, for you to discuss with us a time that you felt like you were facing a challenging moment, an adversity type of situation that was a little bit heavier than the norm. It was a little bit more weightier. You weren't sure how you were going to work your way through it, and you did that. You shared in great depth a multitude of stories where you felt being in that type of situation. So what I'm curious to know from you, and I'd like for you, of course, for you to share with our listeners, is as you were getting to that point of getting ready to tell the story, I'm curious to know what was your range of emotions feeling like from the moment that you started. I just asked the question. It's now time to tell the story. The moment is now here. What was that feeling like? How did you feel as you were telling the story? And what was ultimately that feeling that you felt when you wrapped up the story and it had finally gotten out? You had gotten it off your chest, you had gotten it off your mind. Kind of describe to us what that experience was like for you.
Okay, realistically, I had an internal panic attack. I suffer from a severe anxiety disorder, and I oftentimes, well, not as often as before, but due to my PTSD and trauma, childhood trauma, I later on in life developed PTSD and panic attacks, right? And so I was excited to do the podcast, but then when it was final, the it was set, I was nervous, and I was like, but I'm gonna still do this. I was continuing to encourage myself, but then the day that it happened, I just was like, I hope this fire alarm goes off again, because I don't know, I didn't put my foot in my mouth. I know when I start talking and I start saying stuff, I get to a point where I just really don't care what people think. I'm gonna say what I have to say and what's on my heart, and I ain't no telling what's gonna come out. And I started having a panic attack internally, and then I was talking to myself internally, saying, "It's okay. Deep breaths, relax. Deep breaths, relax." And I started telling my story, and I realized that after I started sharing my truth, it's like layers was coming off of me, like the weight, just I was felt like I was shedding weight off of me the more that I spoke and the more I said. And then when I realized that, I just started talking some more and talking some more, and the more I talked, the less heavy I felt. And then it just became a lot more easy. The panic kind of, went away slowly. And you also created an environment that made me feel okay enough to be comfortable. um so that was helpful too, just your patience. Like, a lot of people don't have that kind of patience that you have. I know I don't. So yeah, so I appreciate and thank you for having that patience with me enough to um say, okay, that went wrong. Okay, we're gonna keep moving forward. And sometimes it takes me a long time to get out what I have to say, because for so long, I don't know if you can relate to this, but my mama always told me, think about what you want to say first before you say it, because of the way that it might impact others, right?
Hmm.
And she used to remind me of this all the time, that if you see me talking slower or like slurring, it's because I'm really trying to be mindful of what I say out of my mouth so that it doesn't come off wrong. But
Hmm.
yeah, experience was nervous, panic, but then it settled, and I felt really good once I was able to get it all out. And throughout the process of me sharing my story, it was okay, because at first I was like, what are people gonna say? Is she doing this for clout? She just wants some attention. Oh my gosh, she wanna be famous. She putting too much of her business out on the streets, and people are always gonna talk. People are always gonna talk. But as you grow, you start to realize that God has a calling on everybody's life for a different reason. And sometimes God put you through things, get you through things, so that you can be vocal about what He has done for you in your life. It has nothing whatsoever to do with anybody else. And so, those characters that are within your life and those spectators that are within your life, they're going to forever have something negative to say, especially if that spotlight is not on them. It's not that you craving the spotlight. You was born with the light. And if you anything like me, you probably ran from the light. So it took me years to not run from my light and to let my light shine. And that light within me that shine ain't nothing but God Himself, using me as a vessel and doing things for me and within my life. Um, to say, hey, you've been through this, you've been through that, but you can get through that, you know. So if you're doing a podcast or anything like that, just know you're gonna be nervous. It's all heck. I know I would. And but once you start to tell your story, it gets better and it feels great. It really
Love
does.
that. Love that. And I appreciate your transparency in sharing that. You're acknowledging the fact that, yeah, I was nervous, but I love that you also stated that as I was speaking my truth, how the layers started coming off of me, that weight, that burden just started coming off of me. And now the conversation became more fluid. It became much more easier for me to speak to what I wanted to share. And that's all I want in that situation. I mean, and that's one of the things that I share with you, as well as any other of the guests that come on the podcast, is that all I ask of you is just speak your truth, whatever that is, whatever you feel comfortable in sharing. There's no need to practice and rehearse in advance. Just let it flow, because it's an opportunity for you not to only empower and uplift others. It's also, for many people who come on and share their story, it's also a healing moment for them
Mhm.
as well. So I'm glad you were able to get those range of emotions led to a positive experience as it was progressing along, and ultimately when you got those final words out, you felt like a sense of relief, like, okay, I can take a breath now. I got that out and I feel good about it, without the regrets. Um, but one thing I did want to ask you real quick, you did mention about, how other people think and feel and wondering what their thoughts about it are. I'm curious to know from you, what feedback did you get for people who did have an opportunity to check out your episode? What were some of the comments that were made to you? What was that vibe that you got after people had a chance to see your side of the story, your story, I should say, that you shared?
So actually, I haven't received any feedback, despite the view. Um, I'm actually, and I'm going to tell you why I think
Hmm.
I didn't receive any feedback. But I actually plan to go live and share that episode on my platform and invite others to comment, because a lot of people, they feel like, I ain't going to say nothing. I'm not going to say nothing, you know,
Hmm.
because she's at that time I was sharing a vulnerable part of my life and I was ready to move forward. I was at a space where I had just moved into a new environment and I had been going through so much and I was unpacking it all right there during that podcast. And I believe people may have watched and just didn't know what to say because they had
Hmm.
no idea what was going on with me because I had been so internalized. So after being able to hear what was going on, it's like, oh, okay. And nobody had nothing to say. And that's why I wanted to do the podcast, because it was that aha moment where everybody think they know what's going on. Everybody they know how you feel and they know what you're doing and what you got going on until you actually say it out of your own mouth. And so I was able to speak my own truth, and I put a lot of rumors, speculations, and things like that to rest. Um, and people probably were like, hmm, okay, I don't really got nothing to say now. Because
Hmm.
sometimes when you got somebody messed up and you assume something, everybody got something to say.
Right.
But then when they wrong, and you show them they wrong or you tell them they wrong, and they realize that they wrong, they never got nothing to say. So no, I didn't get any feedback because then nobody had nothing to say, you know, which is a good thing. No news is good news,
Right.
Um, I've been in a position in my life where I've been on the shade room, I've been on Maury done posted me on his page. I done been everywhere, World Star, where I've had so many people who had something to say about my life, and it was never strangers that bothered me, cause I don't know you people. I don't know y'all. Y'all opinion don't matter to me. I don't know y'all. I ain't never gonna see y'all. Y'all ain't never gonna pay none of my bills or take care of my children. So it wasn't those opinions that bothered me. It was my family and my. It wasn't even my business associates. Not even people I work with in the journey space. It was my family and my close friends that shocked me the most, because those are the people that I have those connections with, where their opinion really mattered to me, because I love them and I consider them to be um, family or a friend. And so when they don't gather around you and support you during hard times, or they're involved in the gossip or commotion, it's hurtful. And I just feel like you should never have to internalize yourself from the people that you love, you know. And when you have to do that, then you need to take inventory of the people that are within your life. So from that lesson, I've learned to take inventory of who's in my life, and I've made some changes. And a lot of those people saw or had access to the podcast and viewed the podcast, and they had nothing to say. And so I'm going to move forward and open that door for people to be able to say what they might want to say, you know.
Absolutely. Sounded like you silenced some critics, because you've had quite a few, and that was one of the things that was unique about your episode as well, is because not only did you share your story, it was also an opportunity for you to set the record straight on some things that people, but be it strangers and or people who knew you personally, had some things to say or got a certain perspective about some things that, had they not heard this podcast and heard the other side of it, it would be easy for you to believe and get caught up in that other stuff. But I get what you're saying. It's still hurtful, nevertheless, because if I got people who are close to me that's supposed to, love me and supposed to mean something to me, even if you didn't hear all of the story, there should be something about the relationship alone that allows you to at least embrace me and cover me, versus automatically just believing everything that's been said or everything that's been put out there, just taking it on face value, because we know how social media is. We know how, just general gossip and rumors can be. If you get caught up into that, it's so easy to get a misguided viewpoint of what reality is really about. So again, I implore anybody who hadn't checked out the episode, check it out, and you're gonna see exactly. I don't want to give it away, but you're gonna see exactly what we're talking about here. So easy, and we are so guilty of doing this all the time in the course of our lives, and it ruins relationships. It hurts people unnecessarily when it doesn't have to be that way. Don't be so quick to just take on face value what somebody says, and you haven't checked and verified and confirmed before you start passing judgments and opinions on people. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, Nashauna, if you had a chance to speak to, you think about our listening audience here, there might be somebody else that has a chance to tune in, and they've been thinking about wanting to share their story like you did. They've been thinking about wanting to put it out there, but they're nervous, they're worried, they're fearful about all the things that you brought up and then some. What would be your encouragement, your advisement to them as to why, if the opportunity is made available for them to share their story, whether it's on this platform or a platform that is proper in creating that safe space for them, why should they do it?
I think you should do it, because why not? You only have one opportunity at this particular life to do the things that you want to do. And I lost my foster mom in 2018, and I shared a bit about that in the first episode. And through that experience, I learned the importance of doing the things in life that you really want to do. Don't wait until the timing is right, because you don't know if you're gonna even be here tomorrow. Through going through different medical issues, that those health scares that I had. Um, thank God I overcame most of it, but it's like Come on now. You got to live your life. And if you have a truth that you've been holding on to and you want to write that book, but you don't know where to start, or you getting writer's block like I did, um, and you just want to tell your story, if a podcast opportunity presents itself for you to be able to get that off your chest, do it. Do it. It's such a relief. It's such a relief. And I was ready to let it go. And being a part of Blessings in the Streets podcast, it just helped me to say, you know what? I'm going to tell my story how I want to tell it without nobody around that I know. Whether it be something good, whether it be something bad, maybe it's both. But I get to tell it. I get to tell it my way, and then put it out there into the world. And I got the help of somebody who know how to do all the admin stuff. I don't got to touch no buttons. So I get to tell my world, my story, and share it with the rest of the world, and put it on my platform. Um, and if you're blessed with that opportunity to do that, do it. Do it. Don't be afraid. Don't worry about what nobody else got to say or how somebody else feel. I mean, be careful. The legal stuff, like all that legal stuff you can't be doing and saying folks' name and things like that on podcasts. Be careful with that. But when it comes to you and sharing your own story, speak your truth, and don't ever let nobody discourage you from doing that. And from personal experience, just know that it is a huge relief. I left all of that I talked about on that show. When I clicked at the end button and I got up from this chair and I walked off, all that was left behind me, because I knew that this platform is where I wanted to share it, and this is where I wanted to leave it. And that's what I did.
Love that. Very well said. Very well said. So before I let you go, again, it's been a pleasure having you back to share a little bit about your experience. But you know how we do here. We want to have a chance to catch up and see what's been going on with you. So this is our chance to love on you, to celebrate you, to acknowledge you. So please share with us. Of course, you already told a little bit of your first big news about now being the wife, because you weren't married at the time when I spoke to you a few months back. So that clearly is one of many blessings I'm sure you got to share. But again, anything you got going on project wise, how can people connect with you? Um, Definitely, please share that personal or business related that you got to share with us at this time.
Yes, I am happily married. God has blessed this union. And yeah, I'm somebody's wife. So
I
excited.
was married now.
I am. um, yes. Shout out to my husband. But yeah, he's a great guy, just amazing, and I thank God for him every day. Um, I have expanded. Journey has expanded to the Twin Cities, which was the goal when I relocated here. We're looking at providing our 8 steps to promotion workshops to not only DHS, which is Department of Children and Family Services, in Ramsey County. Fingers crossed, right? I'm speaking into existence. There's a lot of communication happening. I give God the glory in advance. And Hennepin County. And so there's a lot of great, wonderful, wonderful conversations going on with that. So our expansion is looking really, really good. We do have on our Instagram and our Facebook platforms for Journey a flyer for our next event that's called the Open Road event. It's for youth ages 17 through 28. That's for foster alumni, um, youth who aged out of foster care all the way up to the age of 28. What we're doing is we're providing an opportunity for young people to have access to scholarship opportunities, technical scholarship opportunities, job internships, summer jobs, resume writing, and I'm talking about building their network with people who have direct access, like the directors of the program. The state of Minnesota Office of Higher Education, the administrator of this grant, will be coming down himself to Rochester on April 16th to talk about the ETV scholarship that's available for low income families, where they have the opportunity to go to school zero cost, tuition free. for any 2 year degrees. And then they have so many different opportunities. And the reason why I put this together is because working as an equity specialist in the Rochester Public School District, during my time there, I realized that there were so many opportunities for the Black community. That's the space that I take pride in working in, advancing our people. Um, but there's so many opportunities, they just don't have access to it. And it's not because the information is kept away from them. It's just they don't have reason to go look for it, right? It's not at the forefront of their mind because they're dealing with other challenges within their lives. So how can we bring these opportunities and put it in their face and say, hey, this what you need, I got what you need, this some free, right? We got. So how do you do that? How do you bring forth people? So we got some free food. We have some free prizes where we're going to be doing a raffle. We have people who are going to assist them with their resume writing. So we're not just going to have these people come in talking to folks, because I can't stand that. We don't even do that in our 8 Steps to Promotion workshop. Sharing resources and sharing information is great, but be able to do it in a manner where they can understand the information. So these people are going to come in, they're going to talk. So we have people from the Office of Higher Education, the Workforce Development Center, where they're going to be talking about the internships and job opportunities. We have somebody coming in and talk about the different trade programs that are available for construction, just all different kind of trades. Tuition free. It's all free, and you can be making up to 28 to 35 to $38 an hour, and this is all free to you guys. Just come get it. And we're doing that, and we're not just letting them talk to the kids, but once we done talking, we set aside an hour to go to the next room and help you apply for that scholarship, to help
Hmm.
you apply for employment, to help you update your resume and connect with other people in case we don't finish right then and there. But building their network with people that are um, from the state's Office of Higher Education, from the source, right there from the source. So the sources will be in the room. And so we're excited. That's our next event. And lastly, we've got the Mr. and Miss Juneteenth Scholarship Fund, which I founded in 2021. That's where we give $1,000 to a young boy and a young girl who are seniors in high school, of course, African American, um, who identify as Black or African American, which means you can be, migrated from Africa. Um, long as you identify as Black,
Hmm.
in some way, you qualify for the Mr. and Miss Juneteenth scholarship, which is $1,000 each, which you can use towards school, you can use towards post secondary, you can use towards a trade to start a business, or purchase a laptop. A lot of our youth want to buy laptops with their $1,000 because they don't have access to computers, um, and they don't want the little Chromebooks. They want something high tech and fast,
Hmm.
you know. So yeah, we do that for them each year. So we have that coming up where people can nominate Mr. and Miss Juneteenth within their high school, and that's gonna get ready and start next week. So we're excited about that, and that's about all that I'm gonna share as far as what we have going on. We are hoping to expand the Journey team through the Nexus Fellowship. I've learned a lot about cooperative, and I've been blessed to be connected with so many business owners and cooperative leaders throughout this cohort. So I'm excited to explore the options of Journey, becoming a co-op, or taking a new idea and building a co-op. And I encourage anybody who doesn't know what a shared cooperative is to do your work on it, or feel free to reach out to me, and I have no problem sending you all the information I have on it.
So the best way to do that, people want to either participate or support it in some type of way. What you're doing, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So our Instagram for Journey is at I am Journey. So it's JOURNIE. And our Facebook is just Journey. JOURNIE. And my email is Nashauna at journeyproject.org. So that's NASHAUNA at JOURNIE project.org. So feel free to reach out if you would like to know more about the work that we're doing through our life skills program, if you'd like to become a mentor, or if you're interested in exploring the possibility of being a part of a co-op with shared visions of serving minority youth and youth and families.
Awesome, awesome. Well, that's definitely wonderful works that you are doing. We're doing nothing but lifting up blessings and covering over all of that, claiming it, speaking into existence that it's already happening. It's going to grow and grow into, levels that we haven't even thought of just yet. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for those who are going to be blessed by what you're doing. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed what this time together with Nashauna, catching up with her, or for some of you meeting for the first time and you're going to go check out our episode as soon as we're done here, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment. Because again, at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is what it's all about: uplifting, encouraging, and empowering. I'm sorry, go ahead. You have
Oh,
something? Yes.
I'm going to give you guys the scoop on my book is 8 Steps to Promotion. You can find that on Amazon where we have a brief description of our 8 Steps to Promotion workshop. If you want to check that out, it's on Amazon. Just Google my name or 8 Steps to Promotion.
All right. So now you got a book as well to check out. So as you can see, Nashauna's about her business and she's looking to empower and uplift and pour into people. So it's particularly our young people. So don't miss out on this opportunity if you want to be a part of this. And again, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, if you want to support what we're doing, again, subscribe, share, like, comment, let other people know about our platform and the people that we're having on, trying to express that positivity and most important of all, letting you know that it all begins with God at the head of it all. If you don't have a relationship with God, I promise you that that's a decision not only that you need to make, but it's going to be the best decision that you'll ever make, because he can overcome any adversities, any challenges, any obstacles. There's nothing too big for him to handle. He loves you unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for you. So with that said, remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in with me again. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep persevering. You hang in there. Don't allow those storms of life to get the best of you or to keep you down. Instead, use them as opportunities to grow and be better versions of yourself. That's what they're there for, to strengthen you so you can be the best that you can be in all facets of the way, that using those gifts that God has imparted in you to use accordingly. So I'll see you next time. You take care of yourselves.